They didn't just trespass on my land. They ripped a trench straight through my grandfather's grave to build their luxury golf course pipeline. Dawn light on a raw dirt scar slicing through wildflower meadow. Diesel smell mixing with torn sagebrush roots. That bronze plaque with Grandpa Thaddeus's name crushed flat in the dirt pile like a beer can. The HOA president, Vivian Straude, didn't even look up when I confronted her. Just kept scrolling. Acrylic nails clicking on the screen. We followed every legal channel, darling. You desecrated a burial site. She laughed sharp. Show me a death certificate. Ashes aren't legally interred. That's when I knew she'd made a fatal mistake. I'd spent 15 years dissecting water contracts for Denver District Court. Out here in Wyoming, whoever controls the water writes the rules. 3 months later, I owned the creek feeding her entire gated community. Vivian, drop a comment if an HOA has ever steamrolled you and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Marlo Coltrane. Call me Marley. 3 years ago, I inherited 240 acres of high desert rangeland in Fremont County, Wyoming that my grandfather homesteaded in 1948. Thaddeus came back from the war with a duffel bag and a land grant. Built everything from scratch. He was 1/4 Shoshone, and he knew this land like some people know music. He taught me to read survey maps at his kitchen table when I was 9. Land doesn't lie, Marley. People do. When he died in 2019, I scattered his ashes in our southeast pasture near a cottonwood grove. I'd spent 15 years as a water rights paralegal in Denver. By 2021, I was divorced, 49, and broken. I sold my practice and came home to rehabilitate the ranch. Then Ridgemont Estates happened. Spring 2023. I'm walking fence line and spot orange survey stakes running straight through Thaddeus's grove. No warning. Nothing. At the county clerk's office, I discover Ridgemont filed for private condemnation 6 weeks earlier. Certified letter sent to a P.O. box I'd closed in 2021. Classic move. Here's what Ridgemont is. A 2,200-home gated community built 3 miles east. Artificial lake, 18-hole golf course. McMansion starting at $850,000 in a high desert where we get 12 inches of rain a year. Their golf course alone uses more water than 40 family ranches combined. And now they want a dedicated pipeline running straight through my land. The woman running this show is Vivian Straude, 61, retired pharma VP. When I found the construction schedule at their clubhouse, pipeline installation started Monday, May 8th. I had 3 days. I tried talking to her. You saw how that went. So I called Hector Ruiz, my old Denver colleague who specialized in water law, and told him I needed an emergency injunction because Vivian had just made a critical miscalculation. She assumed I'd roll over. What she didn't know, I'd spent 15 years finding loopholes in water contracts. And in Wyoming, water law has more trapdoors than a haunted house. That weekend was a blur. Hector answered at 9 p.m. Friday without complaint. Private condemnation for a golf course? Can we stop them? Maybe. Emergency TRO citing improper service plus NAGPRA. If Thaddeus's Shoshone heritage qualifies, federal law trumps state condemnation. I spent Saturday night in the attic pulling boxes. Found Thaddeus's Pine Ridge enrollment papers, his 1948 land patent, discharge papers from Anzio. Sunday afternoon, Hector filed the TRO. Judge Kemp scheduled Monday hearing. It didn't work. Vivian brought 3 attorneys from Jackson Hole's most aggressive firm. They walked into that courtroom like they owned it. Their lead attorney presented a county geologist affidavit. No marked graves. Then an anthropologist's report. Thaddeus's enrollment was jurisdictionally irrelevant. Then the kill shot. Your Honor, Ridgemont began excavation Friday evening before this TRO existed. They'd started digging the night I found the stakes. Judge Kemp looked pained, but denied the TRO. Miss Coltrane, you may appeal with a $75,000 bond. Money I didn't have. Vivian walked past me in the courthouse hallway. Didn't speak, just smiled. When I got home, the backhoe was already there. 10-foot trench gaping through the meadow. The foreman met me at my truck, holding Thaddeus's bronze plaque, bent, mud-caked. First scoop. I'm sorry. I've got orders. I sat in my truck holding that broken plaque. Then I noticed the survey map notation. Water source Clearstone Reservoir. Ridgemont didn't own this water. They were allocated it by a public board. I drove to county records. Buried in a 1987 bylaw amendment, never digitized, I found it. Any private entity consuming over 500 acre-feet annually must renegotiate allocation every 10 years or demonstrate conservation infrastructure. Ridgemont's golf course used 620 acre-feet per year. Last renegotiation, 2014. 10 years ago. In Western water law, failing to renew your allocation is like forgetting to renew your car registration. Except the penalty is losing your legal right to use water entirely. I photocopied that bylaw. Vivian thought she'd won. She just opened the door for me to take everything. Vivian struck back 48 hours after the hearing. Every Ridgemont homeowner woke up to an email. Local rancher threatens your water access. My phone lit up with blocked numbers calling me selfish. One guy just breathed heavy and said, "Watch your back." Thursday, a woman in yoga pants blocked my card at the grocery store. My water bill went up 40% because of you. We have 3 kids, but you don't care about families, do you? That night, someone cut 40 feet of my fence. 16 head of cattle wandered onto County Road. For hours to round them up. $1,200 in impound fees. Then Vivian's attorneys filed a counterclaim demanding $250,000 for construction delays. Fighting it would cost $40,000 I didn't have. I couldn't sleep. Started researching at 2 a.m. until I found Clearstone Reservoir's 1963 master plan. Original purpose: agricultural irrigation for family farms. Current allocations split 3 ways: 60% agriculture, 30% municipal, 10% private domestic. I filed a FOIA request. 2 weeks later, I got 4,000 scanned pages. I read for 3 nights straight, until I found the 1987 bylaw buried in Watershed District meeting minutes. But then I found something better. The Fremont Watershed District Board had 7 members. 6 were ranchers and small-town officials. The 7th was Dalton Stroud, who ran a feed supply store. I pulled 3 years of meeting minutes. Every vote on Ridgemont's water, Dalton voted yes. And nowhere in the public record had he disclosed one crucial fact. Vivian Stroud was his sister. Water boards wield massive power in the West, but ethics rules are ironclad. Board members must disclose family ties. Failure to disclose doesn't just void their votes. It opens the entire board to legal liability. I called Hector at 11 p.m. Vivian's brother sits on the watershed board. Never disclosed the relationship. Long silence. Jesus, Marley. That's grounds for a state investigation. We file a formal complaint. They have to audit every decision he touched. And during investigation, all pending allocations freeze. Exactly. If the audit finds violations, Ridgemont could lose their water entirely. I smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. I needed expertise. First call. Iris Pendleton, a hydrologist whose name kept appearing in 1990s water disputes. I pitched fast. Gated community stealing public water for a golf course. Needs someone who gives a damn. She laughed sharp. You had me at stealing public water. We met at a diner. She read my research in silence. 620 acre-feet for grass in a drought basin. 3 ranches south of you have wells dropping 18 inches annually. She pulled out a notebook. Give me 2 weeks. I'll model exactly how much water they're stealing. Next, I emailed Tyrell Booker at the Casper Star-Tribune. Subject line: HOA waters golf course while ranchers' wells run dry. He called within an hour. I gave him copies of Dalton's undisclosed relationship, the allocation overruns, Iris's preliminary data. This is good, but I need proof regular homeowners don't know what Vivian's doing. That night, I pulled Ridgemont's HOA disclosures. Nothing mentioned overdue renegotiation. Nothing about Dalton's board position. Nothing about the $4.2 million bond Ridgemont took out in 2023. I found the bond filing. Page 17 had the poison pill. Ridgemont must maintain uninterrupted water service or the bank could foreclose on all common assets. Vivian had bet the entire community's future on water she didn't legally control and never told a soul. I sent the documents to Tyrell. She's been hiding a financial bomb from 2,200 families. Then I went to the monthly Cattlemen's Association meeting. 30 ranchers in a VFW hall. I stood during open comment. Ridgemont's pulling more water than 40 family ranches. Their allocation expired. The board member rubber stamping everything is Vivian Stroud's brother. Anyone else tired of them stealing what's ours? Silence. Then Gil Navarro stood. Vivian offered me double market value for my Southern 40 last year. I said no. County reassessed my property taxes the next month, up 32%. He looked around. Anyone else get reassessed after refusing Ridgemont? 3 hands went up. After the meeting, Gil pulled me aside. I've got kids in their private school. Can't be your public face, but documents, testimony, cash if you need it, you've got it. For other ranchers quietly said the same. Late June. Clearstone Reservoir dropping 2 inches per week. I was reviewing Iris's hydrological model when she mentioned something offhand. You know, Clearstone's fed mostly by Antler Creek, right? Family sold out in 2019. Some California LLC bought it and never did anything with the land. I froze. Water rights transfer with the land. Not always. Western families often retain rights when they sell. I drove home, pulled up property records. Drummond Ranch sold to Blue Ridge Holdings LLC. I found the deed addendum. Drummond family retained senior water rights to Antler Creek. Priority date 1904. Senior rights. In drought, they get water first, before Ridgemont, before everyone. But water rights require renewal. I checked the state engineer's database. Status: expires August 15, 2025 without renewed application. 6 weeks away. I called Blue Ridge's registered law firm. Drummond property. What about the water rights? Those revert to state in August unless someone renews them. You interested? LLC would probably take $80,000. $80,000. Senior water rights to the creek supplying 35% of Clearstone's inflow. In Wyoming's allocation system, senior rights trump everything. If I owned Antler Creek's rights, I could legally reduce their water to a trickle. I called Hector. I found a way to shut off Ridgemont's water. Legally, the creek feeding Clearstone has senior water rights for sale. 1904 priority date. Long pause. Marley, just owning those rights gives you leverage. You don't have to actually use them. What if I want to use them? Then you're punishing 2,200 families who didn't know what Vivian was doing. I thought about the hate mail, the grocery store confrontation, my cut fence, Vivian's courtroom smirk. Those families elected her. They built mansions in the desert expecting infinite water. Maybe consequences are the only teacher that works. I needed $85,000 in 6 weeks. Tyrell Booker's article hit July 2nd. Gated communities' water gluttony threatens rural livelihoods. It went viral. I launched a GoFundMe. Help a family rancher protect water rights from corporate overreach. 12 days, $41,000. Still $44,000 short, which meant selling cattle. Dawn, I walked out to the pasture. 70 head of registered Angus. Selling 25 would net $38,000 and gut my operation for 5 years. Tuesday afternoon, the trailer pulled away. Gil Navarro showed up that evening with a check for $6,000. No interest, no timeline. Pay me back when Ridgemont's dead. Total, $85,000. Exactly enough. Hector had the strategy mapped. 3 simultaneous moves. Move 1. File water rights claim with state engineer by August 15th. Move 2. Purchase Antler Creek rights. Closing August 10th. Move 3. File complaint about Ridgemont's expired renegotiation and Dalton's undisclosed conflict. Once filed, mandatory investigation. Iris completed her hydrological model. If you exercise senior rights during drought, Clearstone drops 35%. Fremont Watershed Protocol suspends private domestic users first. Ridgemont's allocation stops completely. She looked at me. Question is whether you can live with it. Can they live with desecrating my grandfather's grave? Tyrell staged his articles for impact. Second piece mid-July, Rancher vs. HOA, Modern David and Goliath. Third piece scheduled for August 24th, Undisclosed conflicts on waterboard. The Dalton Straw exposed with emails, voting records, everything documented. August 10th, 3:47 p.m. I signed papers at the county clerk's office. Antler Creek water rights, 121 years of seniority, officially mine. I walked to the Cottonwood Grove. I got it, Grandpa. I got the water. Vivian found out August 12th. She showed up at my ranch 2 days later. White Lexus rolling up my driveway. Marlo, we need to talk. Get off my property. She pulled an envelope from her purse. $150,000 cash. You drop whatever complaint you filed. You think you can buy me? I think you're a smart woman who understands that fighting costs money you don't have. Her voice dropped. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I've buried people for less than this. That a threat? She smiled. It's a fact. 2 days later, Wyoming Department of Agriculture showed up. Anonymous complaint alleged I was overgrazing. The inspector spent 6 hours checking. Passed easily, but it cost me 2 days. Then the op-ed hit Jackson Hole News. Eco-warrior or eco-terrorist? Rancher's water grab threatens thousands. My email inbox exploded. 2 death threats detailed enough I reported them. August 20th, the state engineer's office scheduled an official inspection of Antler Creek. I hiked the property at dawn with Iris. At 10 a.m., Claudia arrived. Then Vivian's Escalade pulled up, followed by 2 attorneys. Dalton Straude climbed out looking sweaty and nervous. Claudia's expression didn't change. Miss Straude, this is a technical site evaluation, not a public forum. My community's water supply is at stake. I have every right to observe. I presented my 30-page restoration plan. Native cutthroat trout habitat restoration. Emergency livestock water for neighboring ranches partnership with Eastern Shoshone Tribe for cultural site protection. Vivian interrupted 3 times. Finally, she snapped. This is a sham. She's doing this to punish us for legally exercising our infrastructure rights. Claudia looked up. Ma'am, the applicant's motivation is irrelevant under Wyoming statute. Only lawful beneficial use and priority date matter. She turned to me. Your 1904 claim is senior to every other user on this watershed. If your use plan is legitimate, and preliminary review suggests it is, your rights are absolute. She looked at Dalton. Mr. Straude, your allocation renegotiation is 5 years overdue. Perhaps focus on that. Dalton tried to speak, but she held up a hand. If you're attempting to influence a state proceeding based on personal relationships, I'll refer this to the Attorney General's office. Dalton went pale. Vivian stared at me with pure hatred. That night, my hay barn caught fire. The fire started at 2:17 a.m. I woke to Scout barking frantically and smoke pouring through my window. The hay barn was fully engulfed. Flames 40 feet high. The horses were screaming. I opened the gate, and they bolted into darkness. Better loose than dead. Fire department arrived 18 minutes later. By then, the barn was a skeleton. They saved the equipment shed, but the hay barn was total loss. $60,000 worth of winter feed and structure. Gone. The arson investigator showed up at dawn. Found accelerant residue. Gasoline or kerosene deliberately poured. My trail camera footage showed a vehicle without plates at 11 p.m. I sat on my porch steps at sunrise and cried for the first time since the courtroom. Not from sadness, from exhaustion. I called Hector. My barn burned down. Arson. I can't prove it was her, but we both know it was. Marley, maybe you should step back? If she's willing to, no. I'm 3 days from filing the final paperwork. If I quit now, Thaddeus's grave means nothing. And if your house burns next, then I sleep on Gil's couch and finish this anyway. Hector arrived that afternoon with a duffel bag and a Remington 870. August 17th, Ridgemont's attorneys filed an emergency motion in federal court claiming my water rights exercise would violate interstate commerce. Judge denied it within 48 hours. Called it frivolous. August 23rd, I drove to Cheyenne to hand-deliver the final water rights claim. The clerk stamped it received at 2:34 p.m. You're all set, Miss Coltrane. These rights are active as of August 25th. 2 days until the watershed meeting. 2 days until Vivian's empire either stood or collapsed. August 25th, 6 p.m. Fremont County Community Center. The parking lot was packed. Maybe 200 people crammed into a room built for 120. The Fremont Watershed District Board sat at a long table. Dalton Straude's seat looked like an electric chair. He was already sweating. Eugene Carpax, board chair, banged a gavel. We're here to review Ridgemont Estates' water allocation and address a formal complaint filed by Marlo Coltrane. Vivian sat front row flanked by all 3 attorneys. Carpax nodded to their lead attorney. You've got 10 minutes. Ridgemont Estates has operated in good faith under the allocation granted in 2014. The delay in renegotiation was an administrative oversight. Our community serves 2,200 families. Cutting their water supply based on a technicality would be unconscionable. Vivian took the microphone. My neighbor's children will suffer because one bitter woman wants revenge for a construction easement legally granted by the county. Is that justice? Eugene Carpax looked unmoved. Ms. Straude, Motivation isn't our concern. Water law is. Mr. Ruiz, you're representing Ms. Coltrane. Hector stood. We'd like to call our first witness. Iris Pendleton, hydrologist. Iris projected her model on the screen. Ridgemont consumes 620 acre-feet annually. That's more than every other private domestic user combined. 3 ranches downstream have wells dropping 18 inches per year. Eastern Shoshone fish hatchery struggles to maintain juvenile cutthroat populations. And Ridgemont's watering non-native grass in a high desert that receives 12 inches of rain annually. Next witness, Gil Navarro. Vivian Straude offered me double market value for my southern pasture last year. I declined. 1 month later, county reassessed my property taxes up 32%. 2 other ranchers stood, nodding confirmation. Final witness, Tyrell Booker. He'd published his expose that morning. Undisclosed conflicts of interest on Waterboard. Dalton Straude has voted yes on every Ridgemont allocation request since joining this board in 2021. He read from printouts. March 2022, approved clubhouse expansion. January 2023, fast-tracked pipeline easement. June 2024, approved irrigation system upgrade. He looked up. Mr. Straude never disclosed that Vivian Straude, Ridgemont's HOA president, is his sister. The room erupted. Eugene banged the gavel. Order. Dalton tried to speak. This is a witch hunt. Eugene cut him off. Mr. Straude, did you or did you not disclose a family relationship with Ridgemont's leadership when you voted on their allocations? Silence. Dalton looked at Vivian. The relationship wasn't relevant to. Wyoming ethics statute doesn't care about relevance. It requires disclosure. Period. You violated your oath of office. I'm recommending the Attorney General investigate every vote you've cast. Dalton stood up and walked out. Just left. Eugene called a 15-minute recess. When the board reconvened, the energy had completely shifted. We've reviewed the evidence. First, Mr. Straude's resignation is accepted effective immediately. Second, Ridgemont's allocation is suspended pending installation of water reclamation infrastructure meeting state conservation standards. Estimated cost, $1.2 million. Third, Ms. Coltrane's senior water rights claim is recognized and approved. He looked at Vivian. You have 90 days to install reclamation systems, or your allocation will be permanently revoked. This meeting is adjourned. The gavel came down. Vivian stood so fast her chair fell backward. Photographers caught her middle finger as she stormed out. Outside, reporters swarmed. I gave a 2-sentence statement. Water is a public trust. It should serve the people who live on this land, not imported grass. The fallout was immediate. Ridgemont's bondholders panicked within 48 hours. Emergency HOA meeting happened August 27th. Homeowners demanded answers. Vivian resigned September 3rd, moved to Arizona 2 weeks later. Dalton faced state ethics charges. The new HOA board voted to assess a special levy, $2,800 per homeowner, to fund the water reclamation system. Protests erupted. But here's what surprised me. Not all Ridgemont residents were enemies. September 12th, my barn raising. 60 volunteers showed up at dawn. Ranchers, but also 12 families from Ridgemont. They brought tools, coffee, sandwiches. A woman named Kendra hammered alongside me for 3 hours. Finally said, we didn't know what Vivian was doing. Most of us bought homes there because we wanted to retire somewhere beautiful. We're not all villains. I know, I said, and I meant it. By November, the barn was rebuilt. Better than before. The arson investigation went nowhere, but Vivian's landscaping contractor got arrested in October for an unrelated burglary. Admitted during questioning that she'd paid him $5,000 to scare the rancher. Vivian was indicted for conspiracy to commit arson. Trial set for next spring. Ridgemont's water reclamation system was installed by March 2026. Graywater recycling for the golf course, cutting their Clearstone draw by 55%. The new board hired Iris as a consultant. By summer, they'd converted half the golf course to native prairie. 9 holes instead of 18. 60 acres returned to natural grasses that don't need irrigation. The new board president called me in April. We're having a community meeting about water conservation. Would you be willing to speak? I thought about it for 2 days, then said yes. I stood in their clubhouse, same marble lobby where Vivian had dismissed me, and talked to 200 homeowners about sustainable ranching, water as a shared resource, and what my grandfather taught me about living within the land's limits. They gave me a standing ovation. The real legacy came from unexpected places. I partnered with the Eastern Shoshone tribe to co-manage Antler Creek, 50% of water reserved for cultural sites and tribal conservation projects. Wyoming named it a conservation priority watershed in early 2026. The leftover GoFundMe money, about $12,000, became the Antler Creek Scholarship. Sends 2 rural students annually to University of Wyoming's Water Resources Program. We launched the annual Water Heritage Festival in September 2026, held at my ranch. 400 people came. Fly fishing lessons, native plant sales, speakers on water law and conservation. Local brewery made a commemorative beer, Senior Rights IPA. Proceeds go to the scholarship fund. Thaddeus's memorial is different now. Bronze plaque mounted on riverstone surrounded by native wildflowers that a tribal youth group and Ridgemont volunteers planted together. Inscription reads, Thaddeus Coltrane, 1931 to 2019. He taught us water flows where it's needed most. May morning, I'm standing in the cottonwood grove. Meadowlarks singing again. Took them 6 months to come back after the construction, but they did. The pipeline still hums underground, but now it carries reclaimed water to half the grass it used to. I kneel by the memorial. Touch the bronze plaque, warm from early sun. We did it, Grandpa, I say quietly. We changed something. The wind picks up. Cottonwood leaves rustle like survey maps being folded and unfolded. Somewhere downstream, water flows to ranches that need it, to fish that spawn in clean creeks, to land that remembers how to breathe. Vivian thought she could bury the past to build her future. Turns out the land remembers everything. And so do the people who love it. I didn't win because I was smarter or richer or more powerful. I won because I had something worth fighting for and people who'd fight alongside me. Because I knew the rules better than the people who thought they owned them. Because water doesn't lie, and neither does justice when you're patient enough to let it flow. Now, here's what I need from you. Drop a comment with your worst HOA nightmare. Petty tyrants, mysterious fees, rules that only apply to you. I want to hear it all, because the more we talk about these stories, the harder it is for people like Vivian to operate in silence. And hit subscribe because next week I'm telling you about the small-town librarian who used an 1870s mining claim to shut down a Bitcoin operation stealing electricity from an entire county. That story involves blackmail, a town hall fistfight, and the best use of a century-old land patent you've ever heard. The fight for what's right doesn't end. It just finds new battlefields. But if you know the land, know the law, and know who your people are, you can win. I'm proof. We appreciate you spending your time with us on HOA Stories, where HOA czars finally get checked. If you enjoyed today's drama, hit like, comment on your favorite part below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll be the first to catch our next HOA showdown.